Welcome to the Parenting on the Spectrum show with board-certified behavior analyst and infant-toddler development specialist Teresa Alexander Inman. Parenting on the Spectrum dives into real stories, challenges, and triumphs, offering invaluable insights and support for families on your unique journey. Let's get into the episode.
Oh, welcome. That seemed a little abrupt. Anyway, let's get into the episode. And I would like to welcome my guest, Morwenna Lewis. She is a psychotherapist. My tongue is new today. Just got a new replacement. Psychotherapist and parent coach who helps mom who have screen addicted children. And I dare say that is such a, I don't know, it's almost like a pandemic these days. So welcome, Morwenna.
Hey, great to be here, Teresa. Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, you are most welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here. I know it's past your bedtime, and I appreciate you being here.
It's definitely late. I'm over in the UK, so we're just after 11 o'clock at night right now, but I'm feeling excited for this conversation, so it's all good.
Awesome. So how did you fall into this screen addicted life?
So I, having trained as a psychotherapist, I obviously kind of relationality and connection is a big kind of part of my daily kind of thinking and reflection. And then when I started seeing so many kind of toddlers with the screens on the strapped to the bar of the buggies, or mums on their phones while their children are looking to them for reactions and for connection, I just started thinking, my God, this is going to be huge. This is such a challenge. And I wanted to develop a coaching offer to go alongside my psychotherapy practice. And it felt like this would be a perfect blend of the psychotherapy theory that underpins everything that I do, and then helping mums put into place really implementation plans, really kind of actionable ways of changing the family dynamic so that the screen time kind of comes down and people can reconnect. So yeah, sort of watching what was happening and also wanting to create a coaching offer.
Awesome. Yeah. Now, my thing is, and I've seen this too much, as have you. What are some of the, side effects of screen time, of excessive screen time? Because I'm not going to tell parents stop. And I don't know what your stance is.
Yeah.
Because some parents, it's for survival, right?
Exactly.
It kind of goes over. So yeah, what are some of the side effects of that?
So sometimes we can see quite a lot of impact on sleep and therefore memory and learning. So that can be a big impact. If kids are staying up late, if they're gaming or blue light before they go to bed and all that kind of stuff, then they end up with a sense of kind of sleep deprivation, which then obviously has all the impacts on the brain of not getting enough sleep. So that's a big thing. When kids are being really sedentary, just, gaming or at their kind of computers for hours rather than out, kicking a ball around, riding their bike, running around with their friends, they can become, heavier than they should be at that age, so they can kind of put on weight, so there can be the health issues associated with that. And then we also see the kind of the impacts on the mental health and the well-being, where comparison, social media particularly for girls, is a big thing, where they are worried about their face, their skincare routine, how they look, and so they start to experience depression and introversion sometimes when they feel they don't kind of fit in with the model version that's being put out there. So those are some of the big side effects that we see.
Yeah, that is really tough. And, I remember I posted something on social media one time because a parent of an autistic child, is like, that's his thing. That's how she gets him to, do everything. She uses that and he carries it around every day. And I said, well, right? Everybody else, we have other ways to regulate. Why don't we try teaching him another way to regulate? And what if the thing breaks? Well, I have another one. And I thought, which kind of reminded me of one of my colleagues who mentioned that this one mom had purchased several VHS recorders or players because she didn't want her child, because all of his favorite movies were on VHS. So she purchased several of them because she knew they were being phased out. So that, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a different thing, isn't it? Parenting on the spectrum, where the kind of the child's needs are very different and they don't have the same regulatory capacity, and so you're needing to adapt all parenting advice to the specific child. And I think when there's ADD and ADHD in the mix, sometimes those symptoms of either hyperactivity or inability to focus, they can be really exacerbated by the short attention span. So if you're watching YouTube shorts or quick stuff and kind of scrolling all the time, then that can increase the symptoms of inattention. So there's, I think screen time can push symptoms into greater manifestation. And then with autism, I think it really has to be about what that child needs, where they are on the spectrum, what the parents understand about their ability to regulate in other ways, and not changing anything too quickly, as you will know, and making sure that any changes are made in a gradual way, and respecting and honoring that child's neurology. Yeah.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, because some parents are like, well, I'll just take it away. No, don't do that.
No, that's gonna be really frightening for them. And and I think, as I understand it, and I'm not a specialist in autism, but as I understand it, the focus and the scrolling can actually provide rhythm, and a soothing rhythm for an autistic brain. Is that right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think it's a different question than from and I don't like the word neurotypical, because actually there are probably more people who aren't wired the same than are wired the same, but traditionally called neurotypical brains. I think it's a very different thing to parent an autistic child.
Yeah, absolutely, yes. And so, what are some strategies that you use to help with this screen addiction? Because I believe, though, with autistic children, what we do for neurotypical
Yep.
children would work. It's just that we may have to do it more intentionally or, more systematically. However, the strategies, I think, are generally the same, and just maybe tweak it for each child, because every child is different anyway. So you can't even say, for autistic children,
Yeah.
for this child.
Exactly. So actually the way that I work, Teresa, is very holistic. So I look at the well-being of the mum first, because often a screen addicted child is actually a symptom of an exhausted mum. So I look at the well-being and the overwhelm and the kind of the context in which she's parenting, and support her with things like her creativity, her health, her dreams, her career, her plans for her life once the children have grown. So starting to bring the woman back into the mothering picture, so that she has a stronger sense of self in that setting. And then we look at communication in the family, and actually look at intentional communication, finding ways to work with what I call the 70-30 rule, where if 70% of your communication with your kids is in a very positive vein, then if you need to be strict 30% of the time, you've built up that relationship credit. So we work very hard in my program to take the most apparently insignificant little bits of communication and turn them into positive communication, so that the household is full of a sense of connection and positivity. So that's the second thing that I do. And then we look at fun, and how's this family socializing? What do you do together? How much time does the kid get just hanging out with you, and having a sense of, this is my tribe, this is how we roll, this is where I belong? And only then, once those three things are in place, do we then look at actually cutting the screen time. And there are, various strategies we use, such as digital contracts is a big thing, and then menus of content, so limiting what children can choose between, so they don't have the whole internet at their disposal. Delayed gratification, so linking screen time to having achieved something earlier in the day. So these sorts of things. But to be honest, once mum's energy levels are up again, and once the family's feeling connected because the communication has been optimized, and then once we've got loads of fun happening, the screen time becomes quite an easy thing to deal with. Whereas if you were to go in and do it straight away, if you imagine, if you're arguing with your child over everything, like you try and get them off their screen, it's just going to be another big argument. Whereas if you get things smoothed out first, then they're going to be much more receptive, much more amenable.
Right. And so, what I hear you saying is that basically, because in behavior analysis, we always talk about replacement behaviors. So,
Yeah.
you work on the replacement behaviors first before you start removing the
Yes.
screen.
So if you had someone who was substance addicted, and they had very little else going on in their life, and that was one of the things that emptiness was what they were escaping from, then let's build the life up. Let's find ways to make life feel enjoyable again before we start to create that kind of void. So I think, yeah, it's very much that replacement strategy.
Wow.
But it's sort of, it's systemic, isn't it? It's systemic family health. So it's not just replacement behaviors. It's, how does it feel to be a child in this family? And has mum ever spent time thinking about her language? Has mum ever thought about what it means to belong to this particular family? So a lot of what I do, I think, is giving mums a space where they can focus and reflect on their parenting journey and create something that then ultimately, when they look back, they'll be like, wow, I'm really proud of how I curated my child or my children's childhoods. So I think we can either get through it and just like hashtag survival, or we can sit back and go, okay, what do I want this experience to be like for my kids? And, that's where having a coach is so helpful, because you have someone external, objective, who can help you unpack things in a less emotive way. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And when it comes to, because I work with also, single moms,
Yeah.
and, they're like, well, sometimes it's not possible because I've got to survive.
Yeah.
A mom said to me today, because I was talking to her about self-care, she says, I can't focus on self-care because my child, like if I send him to a daycare, if I send him to a babysitter, if I do this, if I do that, then, they're calling me. And fair, that happens a lot. So like changing things, I said that to say change is so challenging, right? Because they get into the habit of doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And it just gets to be so challenging trying to change into this new, system that we're putting in place.
Yeah. So I think often the thing that we can change, I'm not sure if I'm looking, is it better if I look up here or if I look at you like this? I'm not sure. I'm kind of,
I look at the camera because
yeah,
I know it
that's
looks
what I'm
weird.
doing.
Yeah.
So I believe that our inner voice is the sculptor of our experience in a way. So if we can work on framing what we're doing as self-care, so even if all we have time to do is make this cup of tea, if we tell ourselves, I'm a mum who makes herself a cup of tea, there's something in that that's about noting to yourself that you can care for yourself, and that can change the inner dialogue and the direction of your thinking towards self-care being something that isn't so alien. So I think there's ways to just, even the tiniest little seeds of self-care can be kind of 10x'd by thinking, I brushed my teeth for 2 minutes this morning, and while I was brushing my teeth, I did 10 squats. I care for myself. So even something as small as that can then be positioned as self-care. And that movement, that direction of travel, then makes it more likely that you will then, next time you have a tiny opportunity to do any self-care, you will do it. So I like to work on the mindset stuff when it's really impossible to fit very much in at all, but just to take what you can do and blow it up with your mindset. And then you can harvest that that better feeling, that dopamine, that sense of, yeah, I'm moving towards something good. And that can then be a very powerful way to make the most of having very, very, very limited time for yourself as a single mom.
Wow. Thank you for saying that, because I was like, well, you have all these gift cards for a massage. So why don't you take one? Why don't you use one? I think that was just too much. So I've got to apologize to her if she's watching. I apologize.
Oh.
Listen to Morwenna, because what you think makes so much more sense.
Do you know what? I was having a conversation the other day with someone. So I'm always growing as a human being, and I'm a therapist, but I'm also always reflecting on the layers of my onion and how every time there's always another layer come off. There will be the day I die. And I was talking to someone about how I move fast, like how I am, like too sometimes productive, and productivity is moving towards a product, isn't it? It's an end result. It's not about being in the moment. And I was saying, even when I put my face cream on, I put it on quite fast. And he said that his wife looks at him and says he has an aggressive face care routine. So he puts his face care like really, really fast. And she calls it his aggressive face care routine. And I was like, even putting your cream on in the morning, you can do that in a loving way, that your fingers tell your face that you're wonderful and that you matter. So I think there are ways, if we can start to bring intentionality into the small acts of care, that can then help us feel like we're giving ourselves more self-care than an outsider might perceive just by looking at us.
Wow, that is so powerful, Miss Morwenna. Thank you. I'm glad I
Is it?
brought that up because I was like, I understood exactly what she was saying. And I was like, oh my gosh, I apologize because I was thinking I was being helpful. And she said, no, it's not helpful. And I was like, and
Mm,
I thanked her for being honest with me because
yeah.
if I'm going to work with you, gotta be honest with me because I don't know everything, which is why I invite people like Morwenna on so that she can give me other ways to look at things.
So, oh dear, it's a tough gig being a single parent, though, isn't it? I mean, I've about half of the women in my program are single parents, and they are amazing. I mean, they're incredible. It's such a juggle.
It is. It takes a lot. It takes a lot
Yeah,
because you're doing the work of more than two people.
exactly, exactly.
You have to overcompensate and, all of that and,
Yeah,
just be everything. So, yeah.
yeah.
So,
And
yeah.
in a way, the 70-30 rule that I spoke about earlier is really helpful in that situation where sometimes you have to play dad and you have to come down hard. And actually, if you've really built the relationship credit, then you can move to that stronger, more disciplinarian position when needed without worrying that you've compromised the safety and love that the mother archetype provides. And so you're kind of moving between archetypes when you're a single parent, which is, it's epic.
Yeah, it takes a lot. It's a gift, right?
Yeah.
It takes a lot of, maneuvering and
Yeah,
to be able to manage those two roles effectively. So,
exactly.
yeah. And I mean, she's doing a fabulous job. And it's just that sometimes I think, like all parents, we get down on ourselves a little bit
Yeah.
when when things happen and we're like, oh my gosh, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think that 70-30 rule is so key
Yeah.
to being able to, first of all, get that footing, right?
Yeah.
Get that solid footing. And
Yeah.
then now you can expand and, start putting those guidelines in, whether it be, I don't know, a schedule, like
Yeah.
you say, a contract or whatever it is. It
Yeah.
makes it a lot easier to handle, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. You're kind of getting them on side, aren't you? And if you think about, if you have a colleague or someone who's always just a little bit negative or a bit critical, when they ask you to do something, what's your reaction? You're like, huh. Whereas if it's somebody who's like warm and fun and generally positive, and then they ask you to do something, you're like, yeah, sure, of course I will. So it's basic human psychology, really, isn't it? To be decent and good to your children and treat them as precious souls who we want to um, we want to see them as entities and individuals, not creatures that we have control over. And I think that democracy and parity are two things that I teach a lot as well. Just thinking about these children will learn how to treat others based on how we treat them. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And it just brought to mind just the way I work when I'm with families. My first thing is I'm going to have fun with this child. And
Yes.
then when I have fun with this child and the parents like, how did you get him to do that? Because I came in as the fun
Mm.
girl and
Yeah.
now he's like, oh, she's fun. So it's easy to
Yeah.
get him or her to do the other things that might have been more challenging that the parents have been trying to get them to do.
Yeah.
And so basically, I think that's what you're saying though. Have the fun, establish that rapport, that relationship, because sometimes parents are so busy parenting that they forget to be and just enjoy
Yes.
the journey. You know,
Exactly.
become my children.
Because we can become entrenched in a power struggle, particularly with a kind of challenging child. You can just get very worn down by it. And actually, you come in with a different perspective, and you give them oh my goodness, that's how my child can be when they're feeling safe and they're having fun. There's a great, I can't remember the name of the author, but there's a great book all about the power of fun, playful parenting. Can't remember his name, but it's a really, really great book. Yeah. So I think, and one of the things that I also feel is, if you can every day, even if you have 10 minutes only, but like we call it mama and me time in my house, but one-on-one time or playtime or whatever you want to call it, but just giving your child 10 minutes, child-led, device-free, absolute fully focused attention, and you say, I'm here to play, let's play, what do you want to play, and just do whatever they want to do. And I think I get more from it than my kids, because I get to be silly, I get to laugh, I get to be seen as silly, which is kind of what you're saying. It's like, actually, they see me as not just a boundary holder, but they see me as someone who can lie on her back with a leg in the air, pretending to be a tree that a monkey's climbing, or I can be wonky horsey, which is a favorite game of ours. Or, it's like, I know myself in a different capacity, not just the one who's making sure that everything's well held in a structured and, boundaried way. I get to relax and laugh, and I get the oxytocin just as much as they get the oxytocin. And then once you've got the oxytocin flowing, the cooperation flows. It is. What's great is it's brain science, isn't it? Once people understand, okay, I'm not just being a soft parent by playing, I'm actually predisposing my child's brain towards connection and cooperation. And then there may be more traditional parents, and sort of maybe parents who didn't ever have that model to them. They can go, oh, okay, there's science behind it. Okay, I'm willing to give it a try now because somebody's told me what the reasoning is behind doing that. And I think that can really help shift parenting behaviors in some cases.
Absolutely, because otherwise you hear, I don't have time to play and blah, 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 blah. But I usually say, well, if you don't have time to play on the front end, you're going to deal with a challenging behavior on the back end. So
Nice.
let's have the play. Let's do that. And, even when you say we're going to do this for 10 minutes, half an hour later, you're still in it, without even realizing that
Yeah.
even half an hour, because, the start of it is just like, oh, Morwenna, really? You want me to I don't have 10 minutes.
Yeah. Get real. And then, as you say, the rewards are the investment now is such an amazing trade-off for further down the line. And if you think about your kids looking back, I don't actually remember my mum playing with me. I don't think I remember her cooking lots of meals from scratch, which was awesome. And I would have far rather a shop bought lasagna and a tickle on the bed. But there we go. I got the homemade lasagna and the mum who didn't have time to play. And I'm like, I'm very happy to give my kids a couple of shop bought meals sometimes, so that I've got capacity to be with them. And it's I think that's something that there's a pressure, isn't there, on mums to do everything, the house to be great, everything to be cooked from scratch, the kids to be doing this musical instrument, that sports club. And it's like, stop. Let's just hang out. Let's just be connected and have a sense of safety and connection in our home.
Yes, absolutely. Sounds like you had my mom. She made the best lasagna, though.
It was a good lasagna.
Yeah.
I mean,
all right. So let's just go back to a few tips, because our time is winding down so fast. So what are some strategies that you can share with parents to help them? So you talked about, the 70-30, and then after 70-30, where do we go?
Okay, so one of the biggest things you can do to achieve that 70-30 is to make as many of your language structures positive as possible. So instead of saying you're not getting any screen time till you've done your homework, you use then. When you've done your homework, then you'll have your screen time. So that's a great one. Looking at flipping. So when you're telling a child not to do something, don't tell them what not to do, tell them what to do. So that's a very good one. So instead of stop running down the stairs, it's like on your bum, something like that. So you're kind of giving a positive and very visual instruction for them to know what to do. And then also ask, don't tell is another thing I teach. And again, instead of saying, in my house, this has been the one that's been going on for years, will you stop peeing on the seat? And instead of saying that, I say to my boys, what do we lift up when we're going for a wee? So it's like just using questions rather than commands. All of these small shifts can really change the atmosphere in the house. So that's one thing that I would do. Another very simple technique that I get people to do is think about the the shortness of their child's years being little, and actually to put something up on the fridge, which is their way of saying, they can put it in their own words, but while my kids are young, I'm going to prioritize play and fun over tidiness and order. So that then you've got something on the fridge that reminds you, as you look at the kind of the mess by the sink and the kid who wants you to go and build Lego with them, it's like, do you know what? I'm going to go for the Lego. So something that just brings you back to that, this doesn't last long. They're not little for very long. So that's also very useful. And then one of the things I do with mums is a very dynamic kind of planning activity where you map out the next 5 years and all the elements of your life with Post-its. We move them around on this big it's called timeline telescope, and giving mums permission to dream ahead and look at, where are the kids going to be going to school? Am I going to be doing any more training? Have we moved house? What's the plan in terms of my I don't know, my career, or, just kind of looking at all of that stuff. So that's another thing that I teach, and I think it's really important, is to take time to look at your whole life and not just get lost in the tunnel of parenthood and then come up when they're 16, 17 or 18 and think, oh my goodness, who am I? And I think having a mum who has time to take that slight step back actually then gives the children a mum who's got a stronger sense of purpose and a stronger sense of agency in the world. And so those are some of the things that I actually think improve the whole family dynamic, and then put you in a place where you can do the screen time. And with the screen time stuff, one of the things I do with the older kids, like 10, 11, 12, is start getting them to do a vision board, get them to cut out pictures of all the things they want in their future, and then sit them down and go, okay, so if you're on your screens for 5, 6, 7 hours a day playing Fortnite or whatever you're playing, are you going to get that job as a ski instructor? Are you going to end up with that Lamborghini that you've cut out? Or are you going to end up with the job that, and they're like, okay, no, I need to make decisions now that lead me towards that life. So connecting kids to their visions rather than just giving them a set of rules can be a very powerful way for the early teens and into the teens. With the younger ones, it's easier to be a bit more sort of instructive, I guess, about the way they spend their time. But that's something, the vision boards is a really effective thing with the older kids. So those are just some ideas.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Morwenna. And how can people get hold of you?
So morwennalewis.com is my website. So you can find me there. And you can also find me on Instagram, Morwenna Lewis Screen Time Coach. So those are 2 places to come find me.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your wisdom and your heart with us.
Oh, thank you.
You are most welcome. And thank you to our audience for watching. Morwenna has shared so many great tips. I can't even think to give you one of them, especially since our time is winding down. So I will see you next week, same time on E360 TV. Thank you for watching.
Bye.
Bye.